I'm Abongile Sopua, from small town in the Eastern Cape, Mthatha. I'm an open license pilot in the Port of Ngqura, Port Elizabeth.
And how did we choose to sail and actually be tug masters? Why would we choose to be tug masters?
Correction, pilots.
I'm sorry. I know very little about these things. So, yeah.
Back in the days, I was doing my research from Standard 8. I started doing my research, what I'll be studying after matric. So I wanted initially to be an orthopedic surgeon, but then the blood and me was not going to work well, so I then ventured off to do, now started 9. I then wanted something different because everybody now is going to be a doctor, a teacher, a nurse. So I looked onto something different like an air pilot or an occupation in the marine industry. So I did my research, came across marine biology, and then now the option was maritime studies, which currently what I'm doing. So it was through my research, never had that opportunity of being afforded like what they're doing now, which is very good, whereby they go to schools and afford students opportunities to list out these vast different careers that are out there. So yeah.
And how long have you been doing this?
I've been doing this since 2000. I started tech at 2007. That's, yeah.
Okay, that's just over 10 years, if my maths is good.
11 years, yes.
Is that you?
Yes, that's what.
Is that what you do?
Yes.
Oh, wow, okay. When do you do that? When do you pull that horn and sound that horn?
It's for different activities. Like, I'm just assuming now the ship is leaving the harbor, so they'll sound they'll blow a horn, or maybe to give 1 hour's notice. If a ship is going to sail, then they normally test the equipment. So they also have to test their horn if it's working perfectly. So yeah, I'm assuming the ship is about to sail and it's 1 hour's notice, so they're just testing the equipment. Or for sailing as well, when there's fog, there's different sound signals they would use and fog, so that other ships as well in the vicinity can identify them on the different sound signals they would use.
Just how much danger is there?
There's a lot of danger.
Yeah.
That's actually one of the challenges. It's a very high risk job being at sea, especially now being a pilot, because now you're doing a transfer from a small boat, which is the boat that takes you out of the harbor, to the big boat or big ship, if I may say, that you're bringing in as the pilot inside the harbor. So that transfer from the small boat to the big ship, that's when the dangers occur, because it's not always smooth sailing. The seas can be rough, so that's where the danger lies.
And you have to do this both during day and night?
Day and night, 24 hours, yes.
And I suspect being a pilot at a harbor is far tougher, because you have to negotiate a lot of barriers as opposed to the open sea.
That's correct, yes, because in the harbor it's more restricted movement, and obviously the ship, when maneuvering very slow, the engines and the wheel, it's not very effective when the ship is going very slow. So that's why you've got now the tugboats to assist us when you bring in the ships, which are now operated by the tug masters. Yes, so it's very tricky, because also you're dealing as the pilot now with the captain, with the tug masters, and with the berthing master, which is the guy who's in charge of the crew that ties the ships alongside. So it's a lot of multitasking.
Tell me, in one of the ports, I will not necessarily mention the name deliberately, a few weeks ago there was a clip that was doing the rounds. What happened there? Tell me. I know it wasn't you. You were not the pilot. What happened there?
I'm not too sure which clip you're referring to.
I'm referring to a clip.
Because I'm not on social media, so...
Well, there's a clip of this one vessel, you know, just slowly moving on and taking on stuff and not stopping. Okay. You haven't had any kind of incidents of that nature, have you?
Fortunately not. My record is still clean. Yes.
Okay. And but generally, again, talking about the profession, the environment in which you work, and the dangers you've just mentioned, or some of the challenges that you've just mentioned. To what extent do you get cooperation from, say, the employer in managing these things? Do you have what you would call a good relationship in managing these challenges?
It's a very good relationship, I must say, because there are programs in place as well if you are not coping. Yeah, it is, I must say, and they're giving us growth opportunities as well. So it is, I must say, a good relationship.
Again, it sounds like a stupid question, but I'm going to ask you this question because I think it's important. Do you get a leave for vacation? I mean, do you get vacation leave?
Yes.
And do you think it's fair in terms of the number of days that you're allowed?
We get the same as the number of days leave as the next person who works in the office, who's in, because they regard us as we in management positions. So we'd get the number of leave days, but then we also have to accept responsibility for the fact that we work in operations. So not everybody can have the luxury of taking leave in December because someone has to stay and bring in the ships in the harbor. Unfortunately, in Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve, someone has to bring in those ships and generate revenue for the company. So that is the responsibility we have. So, but the leave is there. We just negotiate between ourselves, and the manager coordinates like who takes leave when, and we just. And as the pilots, we have a good relationship. So if I take leave this December, so the next December I afford another pilot to take leave. So
yeah. Now I tell you why I'm asking this question. Clearly, I mean, you guys are operating within the port environment. Now you do have seafarers that go out to sea. Some instances they'll be away for 6 months. Because the journey of the vessel says Saldanha, China, Australia, back to South Africa, which could take anything up to 6 months. And then they get given anything up to 3 months leave, that kind of thing. So I'm raising it given the variation in how you guys work. Again, I'm going to raise the question because you just happen to be female. There are issues that are specific to female. In your understanding, if you were to decide to have family, and I'm assuming, let me see your fingers? No family. Assume then you decide to have family, and in the process of that, one of the things that happen in the family is that first there are 2, then there are 3. Your working conditions, do you think they would allow you the time you need, the 9 months you need to carry your baby to term and still continue where you left off when you come back?
Definitely yes.
Okay.
I've got a friend of mine actually who's in maternity leave as we speak. Then they've accommodated her in to work in the office because unfortunately you can't be jumping up and down in the ladder and in the tugboat when you're heavily pregnant. So they've accommodated her. She's assisting in the office, and then when after her maternity leave has lapsed, then they reintegrate her within the working space, whereby she'll be closely monitored maybe for a month, and induction will take place like I said, to reintegrate her in the workspace. So they do allow you back. So it's like when you're pregnant and then they say, okay, no, bye-bye.
It's a good thing, but look, I can't take for granted that this is necessarily so I have to ask the question from somebody who is in the mix. Okay,
that's unfortunately the challenge that we have in the industry, because it is still today perceived as a male-dominated or a man's world, if I may put it like that. So that's unfortunately one of the challenges that we face, because you don't get taken seriously. You don't get taken seriously as a female, because as a pilot, then you're an advisor to the captain. So you walk on board the ship, and the captain just sees this young female coming to advise him, and then he's baffled. Because the other captain in Cape Town used to call me baby. He's like, what is this baby doing in my ship? So you don't get taken seriously. So that's the unfortunate part of it.
How do we address this going forward?
Unfortunately, since we work with a lot of different nationalities, with some it's embedded in their culture that a woman belongs in the kitchen, and period. Because the other captain was besides himself. He did not even want to hand over information that I needed to do my job. So you just have to be diligent in your work and just show them, because some after being, I don't want to say disrespectful, lack of a better word, but then, and they see that you actually can do your job even better, like your next next male pilot, then that's when they'll have respect for you. Because some of the captains, they land you in sticky situations, sticky, dangerous situations, and when you just come and pull him out of that sticky, dangerous situation that he's landed himself in, then that's when he will now respect you and say, you know what, you're actually good at your job. And then you develop that relationship with the captain, because that relationship is very good for breach team management as well. Because even sometimes you even get captains that are going to be sexist, not take you seriously just because you're a female, and they'll want to make advances at you, and you're just here purely to do your job, and then they'll want to make advances, and you have to work your way through that, unfortunately, because the ship is on the move. So there's no time to be calling my boss and say, listen, get me out of here because this is happening. So you just have to be bold and tough in the same breath as well.
While keeping focus on the real job. That's wonderful. I'm glad you mentioned that, because at the back of my mind I thought, surely it can't be that we have a sector where everything is hunky-dory. So thanks for raising that, because these are issues that you should be having a forum, or do you have a forum as seafarers, as pilots, as people in that profession, where you actually sit together occasionally, maybe once a year, and chat about these things?
There is a Women in Maritime forum. I just missed it this year. But then there is a Women in Maritime forum where they discuss the challenges that happens at sea, that surround us as women. Yeah.
And are you satisfied, or should I say, are you happy with the responses that you get as this forum? When these things are taken to the relevant stakeholders, the responses you get, are they relevant and are they satisfactory? Let me say
there's a communication gap there, because the information that is discussed at the forums does not get cascaded down to all the women in the maritime sector. So it does not touch on all the women in the maritime sector. So there is that communication gap that can be bridged.
It's a structural issue, isn't it?
I would put it like that, yes.
Okay. All right. Now, final question. I think I've taken more time than I promised I would. Where do I see you in 10 years?
10 years?
Yes.
Maybe in 10 years time, this is me being too ambitious. Maybe I'll be heading Transnet, TNPA, being the CEO of Transnet.
Oh, well then, I think that's good enough.